Hey, it's Liz from No Trace. I have another super fun scrap busting project for you. It is a super cute sunshine shaped zipper pouch. This is a great way to put some of your smaller pieces of fabric to good use, and it's just adorable. So let's jump in. Let me show you the supplies you need to make this cute little sunshine zipper pouch. First, you're gonna want a 5-inch zipper. You're going to want some small scraps of fabric to make the sunshine rays, and then some larger scraps of fabric to make the actual circles. You'll also need cotton batting. You'll also need 2 really simple pattern pieces, which I'll show you how to make. I made a circle pattern piece that has a 6-inch diameter. That's the measurement all the way across the circle. And I made that from a bowl that I found in my kitchen that is 6 inches in diameter. I just put the bowl upside down onto a piece of paper and traced along the top edge. Then I cut it out to create my pattern piece. If you have a protractor, you could also use your protractor to draw a perfect circle with a 6-inch diameter. The triangle pattern piece for the sunshine rays is really simple to make. So first you want to cut out a rectangle that is 2.5 inches by 3.25 inches. That's what this is. Then you want to fold it in half lengthwise so that it is now 1.25 inch wide and still 3.25 inch long. Fold it in half and press there along that center crease. Then take a ruler and just draw a straight line from the folded edge down to this corner with your ruler. And then you just cut along that line, and then you'll get a nice symmetrical triangle like this. So you just cut right along there, and then you'll have a triangle that will become your pattern piece. The first thing we're gonna do is trace our sunshine ray out so that we end up with 18 of these triangles. I'm using a variety of my yellow scraps of fabric here, and I'm going to trace and cut out probably 3 layers at a time just to speed things up. So I'm just going to start with these 3 scraps of fabric, and then I'm going to lay my triangle on there. Try to maximize the fabric, trace the triangle, and then I'm going to use a ruler and a rotary cutter to get some nice straight lines. So I'll set my pattern piece aside. Now I'll get my little ruler again and my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to follow the pencil marks and just cut out my triangles. So there's one side. There's the other side. And here comes the 3rd side of the triangle. Okay, so I'm going to keep cutting these out until I have 18. Now that I have 18 triangles cut out, I'm going to start pairing them up. I'm going to place them right sides together and just pin them, sort of line up the edges and pin them together. And I'm gonna just go kind of random here so that I have 9 pairs of triangles that are all pinned right sides together. Okay, I've got these all pinned. Now I'm gonna take them over to the machine. I'm going to be sewing the 2 long edges of each triangle. I don't want to sew the short end of the triangle. And I'm going to sew with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I want to backstitch at the beginning. And then just go all the way down, and then I'll pivot. I'll show you my pivot here. Of course, take that pin out before I get too close to it. Okay, once I'm about a 1/4 inch away from this other edge, I'm gonna lift my presser foot and swing my piece around and then come back down the other side. And then back stitch. And I'm going to repeat that for all of my pairs. Okay, all 9 of my little pairs are sewn together. Before I turn them right side out, I am going to trim off the tips here and a little bit off the edge near the tip, just so we get a little bit of a pointier point. And of course, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I am going to save all of my tiny bits for my tiny bit spin. I work with all natural fibers. This can go into my home compost. It will break down if it's pure cotton or linen, not polyester, unfortunately. Or this can be repurposed as stuffing. I'm using it as stuffing for these cute little frogs that I'm in the process of making. Oh my gosh, I love these so much. Or you could also spin it into art yarn or sew with it, just sew tiny. Actually, this is too big for my tiny bit spin. You could sew these onto fabric and just get creative. So save your little bits. Now that all of the ends have been trimmed, now I'm ready to turn my little sun rays right side out. And of course, a handy dandy chopstick will be very useful for this. And it's hard to get a super pointy tip unless you want to spend a lot of time on it. So I will let you decide how much effort you want to put into getting that tip super pointy. I have found that the pointy end of my lint brush from my sewing machine, from my Juki, is pretty handy, but I gotta be careful, because if you push really hard, it will go through the fabric. So I'm just gonna take a minute and just quickly turn these right side out and push out that tip. My little rays of sunshine are done. I also ironed each one real quick. So let me show you what we're doing next. I'm gonna take my round pattern piece and trace it onto some of my larger scraps of fabric. I have 4 layers here. Because I'm gonna need 4 of these circles. So I'm just gonna trace it with a pencil, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut through all 4 layers. And then I'm also gonna use my pattern piece and trace it onto my cotton batting and cut out 1 circle from the cotton batting. Got my 4 fabric circles and 1 cotton batting circle. So next, I needed to decide which layer is going to be this sort of top side and which I want on the other side of my sunshine pouch. So I am going to use this as the solid top side, and then I am going to use this as the bottom outer layer, and I'm going to use these 2 as the liner fabric. I'm going to do some super simple machine quilting on the back side of my pouch, similar to what I did here. And what I have found helpful is to mark the center of my circle. So it's a 6-inch diameter. So the middle of the circle is at 3 inches. So I'm going to get my ruler. First, I'm going to line this up so that I can find the 3-inch mark on this side. And then I'm going to get my ruler and find the 3-inch mark here. And I'm going to just put a tiny little chalk mark right at the middle. So just a little bitty mark there, and that's just going to help me in my machine quilting, which I will now show you. Okay, I've bumped my stitch length up to the longest, so it's at 5 millimeters. And what I'm going to do is just a simple circle around, going around that dot. So I'm going to take my time and just go Slowly turn it. Okay, so I have a funny little circle there. It's not perfect. That is okay. Now I'm going to quilt some lines coming off the circle, kind of like a sunshine. Again, you can do whatever kind of quilting you want. I would just do something to attach these two layers together. So I'm just gonna do a handful of lines. Okay, I know it's hard to see, but that is what my quilting pattern looks like. I'm gonna take a moment and pull all of these loose threads through to the back and then tie them in a knot. Okay, this piece is cleaned up, and now I'm ready to move on to the other outer layer and one of the liner pieces. I am going to put them on top of each other, and I'm gonna cut them in half so that I have two semicircles. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before where I found the center of my outer layer. I've got this on my cutting mat so I can see the center line this way. And I'm gonna use my ruler and just carefully cut right down the middle. So I have two pieces. Oops. I think I have a little nick on my blade that I need to sharpen. So that's why it keeps happening to me. Okay, now we're ready to attach these layers to the zipper. I'm placing the zipper between the two outer layers to make sure that they're arranged the right way. And I then want to fold one side, right side of fabric onto the right side of the zipper. And then I'm going to turn this over so I can see the zipper. And I want to center the zipper on my fabric, especially when I'm working with a metal zipper. I want to make sure that the little metal pieces are evenly away from the edge of the fabric. And then I'm going to get my binder clips and just clip the zipper to the fabric. 3 should be good. This is a small piece. Then I'm going to get one of the other pieces. If this had a right side, I want to make sure to get the right side that matches this right side with a solid. Doesn't matter. And I want to make sure to line up the edge of this fabric with the edge of this fabric. Probably kind of hard for you to see on the screen, but I want these little edges lined up with each other, and then I'm just going to add the liner fabric into the clips, and then I am going to join these 3 layers at the sewing machine using my zipper foot. My zipper foot's in place, and I am going to sew with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I want to make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, these layers are joined, and I'm just going to flip things around and then repeat those steps on this side of the zipper with the other 2 semicircles. And I want to make sure to line up the bottom edges of this semicircle with the first semicircle so that when I finish everything and open this up, the circle is nice and round. That's what we're going for, is round. Both sides are attached to the zipper, and I also sewed a simple top stitch along each side of the zipper. That just means I sewed stitches on top of the fabric just for the look of it, but also to help keep the fabric in place and away from the zipper. Next, we're going to take the quilted fabric that's going to be the top of our pouch and arrange the rays around the center here. So pick a pattern that you like. If they're all the same, obviously you don't need to create a pattern, but if you used scraps like I did, I'm just going to take a minute and set these up in a way that I like. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Here's my pattern of rays. So in the next step, I'm just going to place the rays with the right side to the right side onto my sun. And I'm just going to pin them onto the sun one at a time and make sure that they all fit nicely. Okay, all of my rays are pinned to my quilted middle piece. I just want to point out that I am sewing a straight edge onto a curve. That is going to give a little bit of a sort of puckered look. The alternative is to sew a concave curve to a convex curve. So to cut your pieces so that they curve in the same shape as your round centerpiece. It's just a lot more work to do it that way. So I am keeping this simple, and it's going to give this kind of fun little bit of a floppy look to the sunshine, which I like. But if for some reason you wanted your rays to lay more flat, you would just cut these in the opposite shape of this, so it's a perfect sort of puzzle piece together. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we're ready to assemble the whole pouch here. So we have our bottom piece with the zipper, we have our top piece, and we have our remaining lining piece. So we are going to open up our zipper a bit. We are going to put the top piece on top of the bottom piece, faces right sides together, facing each other. Then we're going to put our lining piece on top of our top piece. So we have all of our pieces sandwiched together here. And then we can flip it over, make sure things are lined up, and you have options here. So you could add clips in addition to the pins that are already on here, or you could move your pins so that they grab all the layers. I am going to do it this way because it's a little bit easier to sew, a little bit faster to clip, I should say, and then it's going to be easier to sew my rays if they stay pinned in place. So I'm just going to clip around, and then I will show you the next step. Okay, here's what it looks like. And I took a moment to make sure that my clips are grabbing the fabric on both sides and keeping things tidy and flat. Now I'm ready to sew. I have my standard presser foot back on my machine, and I'm gonna start, it doesn't really matter where, I'm just gonna start here. I'm gonna get my bag under my presser foot, and I'm sewing with about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to stop before each pin and clip, obviously, and take those out. I'm just gonna go slowly and just sort of turn as I go, take out those pins and clips. And we will trim off all of these little points on the ends here, so don't worry about those. We're following the round edge of our liner fabric. And as I get near my zipper, I want to make sure I don't hit the metal. I like to sew with plastic-free zippers. So they're a little harder to sew with, just have to be a little more careful. And I'm going to reinforce this edge of the zipper. I'm just going to go over it and then reverse. And then just keep going. I'm getting close to the other end of my zipper. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sew over it, watch out for the metal, and I'm going to reinforce it with a couple extra rows of stitches. Don't skip this next part. I'm going to go around and make sure I caught all of my layers in my seam. And now I'm going to take my time and I'm going to trim away the extra fabric from the seam so that my seam allowance is closer to 1/8 of an inch. And I just want to do this carefully and make sure I cut through all layers. Once the seam allowance has been trimmed down, I'm going to take a moment and snip the seam with my scissors. I don't want to cut my stitches, but I do want to cut the fabric along the seam so that the seam has a little more, or so that the bag lays a little bit more flat. This part is a little bit tedious. I will totally admit that, but don't skip it. It's worth it. Maybe just get some good music going in the background and take your time. All right, my snips are done. I'm going to go ahead and do a zigzag stitch all along this raw edge. You could also finish this raw edge with some binding tape, or if you have a serger, a zigzag stitch works great. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, my zigzag stitch is done. This pouch is pretty much ready for the grand reveal. I'm going to turn it right side out and press it really well. It's done. It is so cute. I absolutely love it. And if you are looking for more fun scrap busting projects like this one, I'd love for you to check out my membership. Just click the join button below this video to learn more.